Hi there. Come on in. It's time for Old Time Radio. I'm your host, Jerry Sharp, inviting you to pull up a chair and listen with me to some old-time radio shows. I've got the old majestic radio all warmed up. We're going to reach out into that ether and listen to some comedy, adventure, and drama on old-time radio. And on today's show, we're going to hear episode 2 of Superman, Man of Steel, one of the many kids' serials that we heard during the golden age of radio. And then in our second half hour, we'll listen to that famous crime-fighting program, Gangbusters. Well, last week on our program, we learned that Superman was the sole survivor of a whole planet occupied by a race of supermen. When a great explosion destroyed the planet, one baby was fired off into space in an experimental rocket ship and sent streaking off towards Earth, where the Kryptonians hoped that there was civilized life. In that broadcast version, the sole survivor of Krypton grows up during the long flight, learning all he needs to know through his superior mental powers. He lands on Earth fully grown and adopts the name Clark Kent. Both the radio and the comic strip versions agree that Clark Kent became a reporter on a great metropolitan newspaper, the Daily Planet. He was a mild-mannered person. When some big lug deliberately bumped into him in the hall, Clark just said, "Excuse me," meekly. But when danger threatened, he went into a shadowed alley or into one of those old wooden telephone booths, and inside he stripped away his double-breasted suit and revealed the blue uniform with its red cape and the S insignia on the chest. This was a job for Superman. And now, back to the 1940s and our second installment of Superman.
Presenting Superman. Up in the sky. Look, it's a bird.
It's a plane.
It's Superman. And now, Superman, eighth wonder of the modern world, visitor from a distant planet whose strength knows no limits, whose endurance is beyond anything humanity has ever known. We have seen how the child of Jor-El and Lara was placed in the rocket ship and sent on his way to Earth. During the long journey of the rocket ship to the Earth, the child has become a man. The rocket landed in a desert. Superman stepped forth full grown to explore this strange new world in which he found himself. Today, as our story continues, we find him hovering with his curious power above a quiet highway in Indiana. A trolley car is just pulling up the hill, and as Superman wheels and turns in curious flight, unseen below, a man and a boy come out of the shed that serves as waiting room. Morning, Professor.
Good morning.
Going into town?
Yes, that's right, John. Taking Jimmy to the fair.
Tis a great show, all right.
Well, I reckon you're my only passengers. Make yourselves at home. I'm going to get me a drink of water.
All right.
Why, Dad, we've got the trolley all to ourselves.
Yes, regular private car.
Where'd the motorman go?
And just over to the spring for a drink. It's a mighty hot day.
You better hurry or we'll be late.
We can't start without the motorman.
But we are starting. Look, Dad. The doors are closed. We're moving.
Yes, what happened?
Dad, I want to get out.
The brakes. Something happened to the brakes.
Let's get out, quick. Open the doors.
They're jammed. They're tight shut.
Dad, we're going faster and faster. We're going downhill. Dad, what are we going to do?
Jimmy, come here.
The window. Out the window, Dad. Get it open. Smash it. Oh.
wait.
Get Dad, go.
No. It's too late. Going too fast.
We've got you, Dad. Look, there ahead, there's a tree.
Jimmy,
A tree ball right in the track.
look, there in the sky. It's a man.
Why, he's flying.
It can't be. It's not possible.
Dad, he's coming straight at us. He's swooping down. He's tearing up the rope. Dad!
Wait. Grab hold of me.
No, put me down. Let me go.
Stop it.
One under each arm. Out through the top. Hold on. We're going to crash. Well, we just got out of that in time. Trolley car's a wreck. Smashed into a million pieces.
Where are you going? What are you doing to us?
What's happening? Put us down.
Don't be frightened. You're all right. I had to get you out of there in a hurry. Pulling off that roof was the only way. Now we're going down again. Down. Down. There you are. Safe and sound in the field.
Well, I don't know what to say.
Quite all right, Professor. Getting you and the boy out of that car was nothing.
I can't believe it.
Who are you, anyway? Where do you come from?
I have no name. I come from a world that no longer exists. Here in this world of yours, men would call me a Superman.
It's a dream. A wild, impossible dream.
Dad, it happened. We saw it. He flew down, took us under his arm.
And out of the car, that's all. Nothing so strange about that.
You saved our lives, Jimmy's and mine. I don't understand even now, but I'm grateful.
Are you, Professor?
Well, do you doubt it?
Would you do something to prove it?
Would we? Anything at all.
Then make me a promise. Promise that you'll say nothing at all about what's happened.
What? Don't you want people to know?
Not just yet. I want no one to know, except those I help. Will you promise?
Well, if you wish,
I do, believe me.
then you have our word. Is that all?
No. You've given me your promise. Now I want your advice.
You want advice from us?
You know this world. I'm a stranger. You know the people in it. And I have still to find them out.
You want to meet men, is that it?
Not meet them, Professor. Observe them. Study them. See them at their best and their worst. Know which to help and when help is needed. If you can tell me that,
Dad, can we help him?
Well, I think so, Jimmy, if that's what he wants.
it would mean a great deal to me.
Well, my friend, if we can call you that,
I hope we can.
My first friends on this earth.
to mingle with people, to see men at the highest and the lowest, if that's what you want, now let me think. Now, how about a newspaper, a great metropolitan daily?
A newspaper.
Well, yes, join their staff, be a reporter.
Oh, but you can't do it in those clothes. Not that blue costume with the cloak and shield on your breast. Gee, you couldn't.
Jimmy, these are the cloak and the shield of Superman. If I become as other men, I shall dress as other men.
Well, you'll have to assume some kind of a name. What do they call you?
I have no name.
Well, how about Clark Kent? That sounds all right.
Yes, why not? It's usual enough. Won't attract attention.
Clark Kent. Clark Kent. Yes. And about joining a newspaper. That should give me an opportunity to learn the troubles of men, to know whom to help, and when help is needed. I'll do it. Many thanks to both of you for your advice.
Well, no thanks are necessary. If there were only something more.
Just this. Remember your promise. Never to reveal my identity. And now, goodbye. I've stayed too long, and I'm off. Goodbye. They're right. Superman must become a reporter. A reporter by the name of Clark Kent. Clark Kent. I'll do it. Steady, roll. White.
Listen, Chief. You better get somebody in that railroad story right away.
Anything break?
Looks bad. I don't know where your dope came from, but it sure was right.
Where are you now?
At the yards out of town. If I were you, I'd have somebody watch the man they call the Wolf.
The Wolf.
That's what I do, Chief. Watch him. Trail him. Follow him every minute. He's at the bottom of this as sure as you're born. Oh, hey, I gotta meet him. Someone's coming. Oh,
Excuse me, Mr. White. That young man's still waiting.
What young man? Oh, the one who wants a job? Well, let him wait. Who have we got that's free?
John's on the coast. Grayson's down in Virginia. Most of the day men are full up.
I knew it. Confound it's always the way. Something breaks and nobody to handle it.
What is it, Mr. White?
Railroad. Sabotage. I didn't believe it, but there may be something in it after all. If there is,
Yes, sir?
if there is, Miss Smith, it'll be the biggest story since Lindbergh. And me short-handed. Oh, what's the use?
Yes, sir. About that man.
Oh, send him in. Send him in.
Yes, sir. Come in, Mr. Kent. Mr. White will see you now.
You want to see me? Close that door.
Yes. My name is Kent. Clark Kent.
What's going to do for you, Mr. Kent?
Well, Mr. White, you can give me work, I hope.
Work? On the paper?
Yes, sir. I'd like to be a reporter.
Oh, you'd like to be a reporter. What papers have you worked on?
Well, none, sir, but...
Oh, you haven't. But you think you'd be a whiz. Well, I'm afraid I can't use you, Kent.
You mean you haven't any openings?
Not for greenhorn. I'm sorry if I'm blunt.
But, Mr. White, even if I am a greenhorn, suppose I brought you a good story.
And where would you get it? I'm afraid you'll have to excuse me, Mr. Kent.
A really good story?
Such as...
Such as the complete inside on the man called the Wolf on the Western Railroad?
What's that? You heard me. Do you want that story? Do I want it? Well, I should say I do. But look
I
here.
think I could get it for you, Mr. White.
What do you know about the wolf?
A little bit.
Where did you ever hear his name?
Connection with railroads, Mr. White.
Oh, stop beating around the bush. I only heard the beginning of that myself yesterday morning. Not a paper in the country has carried a line. And yet...
And yet I come in here and talk about it. I think I could do something with it, Mr. White.
Now, look here, Kent. Mysterious secret messages have threatened to tie up every railroad in the country, beginning with the Western. For a while, the road paid no attention. And then the crack flyer on the P&R went off a bridge.
Yes, I read about that.
Naturally. But you didn't read about the warnings because they weren't printed.
Weren't printed?
No, and they won't be. Not until we've checked all the angles. And then this man, the wolf.
Oh, yes, the Wolf.
Now, where do you come in? How did you get to know the wolf? Excuse me. Stay home, White.
My friend, tomorrow night, the Silver Clipper leaves Denver for the west. It will not arrive in Salt Lake City.
Hey, what's that? Who's this?
I have been called the Wolf. Goodbye.
Hey, come back here. Come back here. Wait.
Yes, Mr. White?
Where did that call come from?
I'm sorry, sir. The party's been disconnected.
Nuts.
Beg your pardon, sir, but if that call did come from the Wolf, I should be inclined to believe it.
Huh? How do you know who that was?
If I were you, I'd warn the officials in charge of the Silver Clipper.
Look here. You couldn't hear that phone. What is this? How do you know who called me?
As I was saying, Mr. White, suppose I brought you a good story, a really good story. The story of the Silver Clipper and the Wolf.
To take a chance on you.
Thank you, Mr. White.
It's 2,000 miles. You'll have to hop a plane.
I'll get there, Mr. White, in spite of the weather.
Lord, I hadn't noticed the weather. Well, get to the airport anyway.
You rang, Mr. White?
Miss Smith, this is Clark Kent, temporarily attached to our staff. You'll note I said temporarily.
Yes, sir.
Kent leaves for the west for the first plane. Get him tickets and a $200 advance.
Mr. White, all planes are grounded.
That's all right, sir. I'll get there.
Take him outside. Show him what he needs to know.
Mr. White, I'd like to thank you.
Oh, let it go, Kent. Let it go. You get a story and you get a job. You're either clairvoyant or the luckiest guesser alive. Either way, I can use you. But if you miss out, well...
This way, Mr. Kent.
Thank you, Miss Smith. Nice of you to show me around.
Pretty lucky, I'll say. 100 good newspaper men walking the streets and you stepped right into a job.
Hey, I am lucky.
You wait in here. The anteroom of the cashier's office.
But I really don't need an advance.
Oh, playboy in disguise, eh? Wait here.
What a rotten night.
Don't fall out that window. It's 20 stories down.
Beautiful view, even in the fog.
You wait right here till I get your money. Then I'll introduce you to a few real newspaper men.
Plane's grounded. 2,000 miles to go. Sorry, Miss Smith. I'm afraid I can't wait. Clark Kent may need a plane, but Superman doesn't. Up with a window. And out.
Ted, I hope I didn't keep you waiting too... What?
Miss Smith, what's wrong?
That man! Did he go out, that Clark Kent?
Nobody went through the city room.
He didn't go out. Well, I left him right here, the window. Oh, the open window. He went through it and it's 20 stories down.
You went through the window?
Out the open window, 20 stories above the ground. In the wink of an eye, Clark Kent, cub reporter for the Daily Planet, becomes Superman, eagle of the sky, winging his way west over city and plain, river and mountain, through the storm-swept night. But will he be in time? Can he checkmate the strange figure called the Wolf, discover the plot, save the Silver Clipper, roaring toward Denver at 90 miles an hour? And remember, don't miss the next installment of Superman. Up in the sky. Look, it's a bird.
It's a plane.
It's Superman.
And we invite you to tune in next week when Superman tangles with the wolf. Well, in our second half hour, we're going to listen to a full-length Gangbusters program, as it was aired many, many years ago from the golden age of radio. Let's talk about Gangbusters. Sirens howling in the night, the flaming clatter of submachine guns, and finally, the marching tread of convicts headed for their cells. That was the beginning of Gangbusters. Such a noisy billboard and such a program compounded of authentic police cases and violent melodrama was typical of the man who created this radio series and several other of the most successful crime shows on the air, Philip H. Lord. Lord was a writer, producer, director, salesman, and actor. And his was the mind behind the creation of Mr. District Attorney, David Harding, Counter Spy, and G-Men. In 1935, Philip H. Lord began the program called G-Men, and later on that program was to be renamed Gangbusters by writing scripts based on the files of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover was frequently displeased by Lord's heavy-handed use of gunplay instead of patient police work to bring down public enemies, and he ended the association after 26 weeks. Well, undisturbed, Lord gave his investigators city police badges in place of FBI IDs and continued the program as Gangbusters. The sirens, the rattle of machine guns, and the cons' marching feet became the familiar trademark of Gangbusters. After this capsule view of crime and punishment, Commissioner Louis J. Valentine, the host, who was succeeded in later years by his aide, Colonel H. Norman Schwarzkopf, interviewed a local official of the Rockford, Maine, or El Paso, Texas Police Department, or some other privileged city. The interview faded down for a dramatization with a maximum of sound effects for the audio-conscious radio audience. We'll continue our thoughts about Gangbusters in just a little while. But first, we want to take you by radio band remote and listen to the music of Count Basie and his orchestra, and let you listen to an original broadcast now, as it was recorded directly off the radio on June 30th, 1937. And this is a broadcast from the Savoy Ballroom in New York City. And now, Count Basie.
Company at the Savoy. To the West Coast, to this side, good morning. Presenting a program of music by Count Basie, the Count of Swing. This program of ultra-modern rhythm comes to you from the Savoy Ballroom. Known as the home of happy feet, Count Basie, the singing of Willie Holiday and James Rushing is heard here nightly. Whether it's good evening to the west or good morning to the east, it's a good program from the Savoy. And now, all in fair warning, after all, we're friends from coast to coast. Maybe you better turn that little left dial down about 3 decibels, because Count Basie plays the bugle blues.
Yes.
the Mutual Newsroom in New York.
Yes, an original broadcast from 1937. That just as it sounded, as you could hear that fellow butt in there. That was Count Basie and his orchestra. And as you well know, if you're a regular listener to old-time radio, each and every week we take you by radio band remote to one place or another. And next week, Benny Goodman and his orchestra, 1937 broadcast. And now, back to our story about gangbusters. Gangbusters told how Dillinger, Babyface Nelson, Willie Sutton, and the rest of how all of these people met their fate. But there was always a supply of dangerous criminals still on the loose, and gangbusters offered nationally broadcast clues to aid in the capture of these bloodthirsty fiends, who more than likely that you would encounter sometime during the coming week. One of gangbusters' nationwide clues went something like this. Wanted, Oscar Leonard Butcher, 53 years old, 6 feet 7 inches tall, weight 489 pounds. A scar from beneath the left eye to the right armpit, and from the chin to the left ear. No Adam's apple. That's no Adam's apple. 6 front teeth have gold caps. That's 6 front teeth have gold caps. He walks in sideways, crab-like motion. He walks like a crab. A very high-pitched voice. A high-pitched voice. Constantly uses the phrase, goodness gracious sakes alive. Says, goodness gracious sakes alive. Likes to play tennis. That's Oscar Leonard Butcher, wanted for questioning in mass murder. And then at this point, gangbusters host Colonel H. Norman Schwarzkopf would break in and advise us, if you see this man, notify the FBI, your local law enforcement agency, or gangbusters at once. Oh, even the alleged Colonel Schwarzkopf wouldn't have been much help in a genuine police operation. Like practically everyone on the show, he was there only by proxy. Lord, the producer, was worried about non-professionals hitting their cues and had the real Schwarzkopf impersonated by a radio actor. In most cases, the guest police official was also there by proxy. That was another actor. Real policemen obviously couldn't be expected to sound as stalwart and professional as radio performers, Lord reasoned. The only actual principal of a police case ever to appear on Gangbusters and perform as he should was a parrot who had been talking for his supper for a long time. As far as the public was concerned, Gangbusters was definitely not for the birds. They bought it, proxy policemen and all. And in our second half hour, we'll be listening to a full-length Gangbusters program. And this is back, we're not real sure of the particular date on this broadcast, but it goes way back. And I'm sure those Gangbusters fans of you will really enjoy it. We'll be back for our second half hour in just a little bit, but first of all, it's time for Station ID. Before we do, we should mention that some of the material on today's show is from a book entitled The Great Radio Heroes by Jim Harmon. And now let's turn it back to the station, and then we'll be back in our second half hour with Gangbusters.